just the frames. Got keys to kingdom, unlocking chains. Sober the podcast, open up your brains. Sober the podcast, let's get it, man.
Welcome back to another episode of Sober the Podcast with your host, Bradley Saxon. And I know you guys have been sitting on the edge of your seats waiting to hear the turning point in Mr. Cothran's life.
Yeah.
Too bad we haven't waited a week because we're going to do it today.
Yeah.
Thankfully. But, you know, it's amazing how we concluded the last episode of understanding that there is some goodness and understanding on a scale of 1 to 10. We're all 5s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm recalling this quote from the Big Book that Bill Wilson had when Abby Thatcher came and carried the message to him. He literally said to himself, which is a lot of what happens with the prodigal son coming to his senses, was just this idea of, if I can have a foundation of complete willingness, then I might be able to build what I see in my friend.
Yep.
And so that's really the gift that I feel like we all have established at one time and continue to try to cultivate.
Yeah.
Let's be honest,
Yep.
continue to try to cultivate that willingness, because we know that sobriety, or we know that sometimes the enemy likes to use our success as a building block to try to reestablish itself. And so it's not that we had one moment of complete willingness and we never tried to cultivate that. We've tried to cultivate that and still do to this day. But there was just this time in our lives that are pretty, I guess the word is synonymous. What's the word I'm looking for? Synonymous. That we were defeated.
Yep.
Yeah.
We threw the white flag.
Yep.
There's no more exerting wills, no more trying different directions, no more I'm just going to drink some beer and not do pain pills. It was just this idea of, this is whoop my tail. And so I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And that became the foundation that you built your life. So tell us a little bit more about, you know, your journey into NA with your sponsor. My sponsor jerked me out of the meeting and said, if I share again, I need to get another sponsor. Yours told you at 36 days, when you failed to go to 37, you got to start over. Like, man, that's the kind of leadership knuckleheads like us.
Yeah.
Oh, so I love
We needed it. It bust our ego and deflated it just quickly. So, you know, just tell us how that process over the years really just helped you recover from drug addiction
and saved my life.
And saved your life.
Saved my life. Yeah. My sponsor told me one time, he said, you need to take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. That was his way of phrasing it.
Which we still use that phrase.
Yeah. So I got plugged into that meeting down Salvation Army. It was called Laid Back.
It's not there no more, is it?
Great meeting. No, I think Flip's bringing it back. In
he
space.
is. Yeah, so, for sure.
He's doing great work down there at Sobar. And so I made those meetings, started working the step guide, the NA step guide, with my sponsor. Got that job, I worked 4 12s, which was good for me. And I was told everything to do. It was I hated it so much, but it was such a perfect job, because it was like, you're going to sit here from 8 to 10, you're going to call this list of people, and then you're going to get in the truck and you're going to, like, it was a this and then this and then this and then this. And there was I didn't make a single decision all day. I just did what I was told.
Yeah.
And I had never worked that kind of job. I was 31 years old. And it was perfect for me. And when I had days off, I'd make a couple meetings, and Jill would let me be in the house. So I'm very grateful for that. I did not stay in the house. She did not like me at the time. She was very justified in not liking me. But we just began to kind of work on, I began to work on, all right, what's within my sphere of control. I can show up on time. I can be present with the boys. I can not be on my phone. I can paint that wall if it needs to be painted. I can fix this thing around the house for her. And I started serving without the expectation of a return on my investment. And that was a pretty big deal.
Yes.
That'll preach right there, by the way. You ought to steal that.
You
one.
were preaching real good right now.
But
But she wouldn't let. So you could be in the house, but you didn't sleep there.
Oh no.
So where were you staying? Mom, dad's?
Mom and dad, my little sister's childhood room.
Yeah.
It was lavender. It was lavender.
More making of a 5 is what I hear.
That's so
bro.
good.
Yeah.
I remember one time Eddie was 4 and he spent the night with me, and I remember just being crushed that's what it had come to.
He spent a night at Mama's house.
At Mom and Dad's with me. Oh, it was tough.
Healthy boundaries.
So, but I mean that there was a reason that it had to be that way.
Yeah.
Alan, you're not where you're at without that.
No.
Like, people see, and I say this all the time, man, but this is the story.
Yeah.
You ever want to know about a person? Take some time and sit down with them and listen to the story that is created the influence they have today. Like, bro, those were the moments that God was like, I can trust him a little bit more.
Yep.
I can trust him a little bit more. Because those are the moments that we don't realize that it's okay to be hidden and let God cut on you.
Yeah.
People don't got to know who you are. You ain't got to have a title. Like, these are the times in his life God's hiding him and saying, I'm going to cut on you a little bit. And you be completely okay with it.
Yep. Well, so many times people want to hop out the fire when he turns up the heat on them, you know?
Yeah,
And
but there ain't no shortcut.
No, it's not. And I'm just sitting here thinking of how easy it would have been to get upset and try to do something else. You know, you said that was the perfect job for me.
Yeah.
But I'm sure in the moment it didn't feel good.
No.
And that's what so
And I'm
many
sure you would have
people-
never said that then.
Yeah.
No.
It's what so many people don't realize when they're in that furnace is sit in it.
That's right.
Afterwards you're going to benefit from it.
And I wanted to be back in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And in retrospect, I didn't need to be back in the house. I needed the opportunity to be able to stay at laid back until 10:30 at night and talk to the people for an hour and a half after the meeting that you don't have if you got to get home and do the things that husbands and dads do. So
That's that provision, bro.
yeah. It didn't feel like it, but it was.
It
That's
was
what
that
it was.
provision, man.
So I'm working, 48 hours, trying to pay bills, not making enough money to do it, but I'm staying clean. Perspective starts to change, and I remember I got content with my sponsor asked me the question. He said, "What are you gonna do if she serves you with papers tomorrow?" And effectively, what he was saying, he knew my idol, and my family was my idol, and he was asking me, "Are you gonna give this up and get high if she divorces you?" And I remember being able to answer honestly that I said, "I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing," and I said, "I'm gonna whatever the next right thing is, that's what I'm gonna do." And so he asked, "So you're not gonna use?" And I said, "No." And I think that was honest at the time. I'm so grateful I didn't have to practice it, but I think it was honest. And almost immediately after that, we started talking about reconciliation and me moving back in.
That idol got torn down.
Yep. So January 31st, I'd been clean about 75 days. I was down here on on Market Street, which is that way, I guess. There's a sheet metal auto shop about halfway down, right before you get to the old Anderson Country Club. That end.
Oh, yeah.
A 74-year-old pulled out in front of me in a minivan. I knocked him into that sheet metal building. I broke my leg, and the ambulance comes. In the ambulance, they're like, "We think your back's broken. We're going to give you something for the pain." I was like, "Don't give me anything for the pain. I'm in recovery. Don't give me anything." I get to the ER. I hear the doctors like yelling. They hadn't given him any morphine yet. I'm like, "I can't take morphine. I'm an addict in recovery. Don't give me anything for pain." It hurt like a mug. They take me into the exam room, and they're setting all the stuff up, and then they find out I got this big scar under my hair. The cab of the car, the metal beam on the top above the windshield, had come back and caught me right here. And the miracle of this is I was in my father-in-law's Durango, which was a little bit bigger than my 4Runner. So if that bar had been 2 inches lower, it'd have caught me here. Killed me. But instead, it caught me here. It scalped me. And so I got 42 stitches that they put in there. And stitching right there hurts because you can't
Scratch
inject
it,
anything.
nothing.
Well, you can't inject any lidocaine or anything into it.
Yeah,
So,
to make it numb.
so she's stitching it up, and I was crying at that point. It hurt so bad. anyway, I go into shock in the CT scan or the MRI, whatever it was. I'm in a tube. I say something to the effect of, everything's spinning. They pull me out, and I woke up on a morphine drip. And I remember thinking, I'm going to die. Like, I didn't die in this wreck, and I'm going to die from this drug hanging in that bag right there. And I called my sponsor because it was the only thing I knew to do. And I remember that punk, he was like, why don't you just do what the doctors tell you to do, and we'll take care of tomorrow when it gets here. I mean, how many times had I heard that, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough worries of its own? I mean, I had grown up with that verse, and that's all he was saying. And so I planned things out with the doctors. They had to put 2 plates, 13 pins in this leg. I was on a lot of pain meds through the time, but I mean, I remember just desperately. My mom drove me to laid back in her Buick LeSabre as soon as I could get there, because I was like, I'm gonna die if I don't get the help. The saving grace, or not the saving, one of the saving graces of that whole experience was my dad. He's passed away, but he was a like blunt to the point man, and he dropped me off at my house at Jill's after the surgeries, and Jill wasn't ready for it. But what it allowed her to see me. My relationship with painkillers had drastically changed. It was like, that's death. I have to use it for this little window of time. And when I'm able to get to the other side of it, that's what I'm going to do. And so she got a front row seat to that. One of the beautiful things about it was I got to spend every morning with Eddie. We watched He-Man videos while I was out of work. And so all this time I'd given away with him the previous, 2.5 months. I got back. We had some great times hanging out. Jill got to see me really wage war against this thing. And it came time to be done, and I was done. And so things were not, unicorns and rainbows with Jill from the beginning. One of my favorite stories to tell. She doesn't like it, but I'll tell it anyway. I'm probably like 2 years clean, and I'd gotten a pretty good job with this same company in Greenville. I'd kind of put our financial picture back together, but I was working crazy hours, like 70 hours a week in Greenville. I'd leave at 7, get home at like 10:15. 5 days a week. It was a brutal schedule. It was the only way to make it with that company. And so I felt like I didn't do it very long, because I realized that there was no way I could be a husband and a father with that schedule. But at the time, it was great. It showed me some discipline that I needed. But I was working those kinds of days, and I left early one day, and I get home at like 7:30. The sun was still out, and there's a vodka bottle in our front yard. So I'm like, I didn't really think anything about it. So I pull into the carport, I get out, I walk in, I say, hey, I just wanted you to know there's a vodka bottle in the front yard. I'm gonna go get it. I don't want the neighbors thinking something crazy is going on here again. And I mean, I'm a fair amount of clean time at this point. And she lost it. She was like, I know you're drinking again. I can't, and I mean, just dresses me down right there in the kitchen. And I'm at a loss. I'm like, and as she is going in, I realize I did this. Like, this is my fault. And that vodka bottle's not mine, but her reaction it's a result of my behavior. And so she finished, and I said, hey, I understand why you would react that way. I want you to know it's not mine. I said, I am going to go get it and throw it away because I don't want it in my front yard, but it's not mine, but I understand why you would react that way. And she stayed angry for probably a day, till the next day. But I think the ability to see that, you really do reap what you sow. And that's what I had built for years, was distrust. And so to be a year and a half or whatever, a year in, and for her to have that kind of question, but those moments were less prevalent than the reconciliation that was happening. And I became a different person. I mean, Jill says she's been married to 3 different people: pre-cancer Alan, post-cancer Alan, and then clean Alan. And I think that the biggest change in my life has been the last 12 and a half years. And so our 3rd child was born in April of 2012. His birthday's tomorrow. Happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday.
Birthday.
Yeah.
he's a
Wyatt.
great kid. We call him our reconciliation baby. He came at a time when our family was putting the pieces back together. He was such an easy kid. He is so like laid back, go with the flow. Our two oldest had like colic and all the things where they didn't sleep through. Wyatt slept from the very beginning. He ate whatever you put in front of him. He was always smiling. He was just easy. And so we're kind of developing what's this new relationship look like. We got this third child, and our first two had been really challenging, and this one's super easy. Life just continued to get better over time. And there were hard things along the way, but it got better and better. About 2.5 years in that job, I realized I had to quit it. I was just working crazy hours. I was not able to be a dad. It happened. We went to the beach, and Jill's out with the boys right at the water, and for some reason I was back where the chairs were, and I look out, and there's a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and 1-year-old, or a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and 2-year-old. I can't remember the exact ages. And I'm like, she can't do this by herself 5 days a week. And I got home, and I wrote a letter of resignation, and I didn't have anything lined up, which I would not recommend. But I wrote it Sunday night. I turned it in Monday morning, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't be a decent husband and dad with this schedule. They tried to keep me, which was crazy because for so long everybody tried to get rid of me.
Yeah.
This company tried to keep me. And so I quit that job, got a job with a children's home. I loved it. I loved that work. Enjoyed working there for a couple years. And then in 2015, a buddy of mine at the church said, I think there's a job up here that might suit you well. Would love to have you consider it. And I really thought I'd burned that bridge. I didn't think that was ever going to happen. And ended up interviewing for it. It went well, and went back to work there and have been there for the last 8 years. So
Awesome.
How about that?
Family is good. It's not perfect, and you deal with, as your kids get older, you deal with progressively harder things, and mine are becoming men, and that's hard on mom, and those things happen. But I've got this foundation, and so much of it, it's in my faith, but a lot of my faith manifests through my recovery, which is like, I tell people that I'm like, if you'll stick with this thing, you'll realize we got the cheat code. Like everybody else is missing something that they need, and we got it. And like, that's why I love, you said at the beginning of the first episode that I did with you that you talk about sobriety, but the message is broader than that. And man, everybody needs a program.
Yeah, they do.
True.
And it's like, what we got was the gift of being convinced of it by pain.
Yeah.
And so what really hurts is sitting down with a successful 45-year-old whose life is falling apart, but he can't see it because the pain is always generated outside of himself, he believes. And really it's like, well, you're just unwilling to look inside because you hadn't had enough pain. So, so life is good.
It's crazy how, drug addiction, which was our greatest liabilities, now turned into our greatest asset because it makes us look within and understand that every problem we face, only way to overcome it is to see what is our part. It's such a gift. It's the cheat code, like you said.
Yeah. Something I thought about too, as we conclude, is, he said something that made me consider forgiveness, is how he responded to his wife after a couple years. And I just thought about this statement. Forgiveness has barriers. Like, it's one thing if you get a little nail scratch, you might can consider you getting over that quickly. But for people like us who live those lives, when it comes to our spouses, significant others, moms and dads, like, you need to know that's a broken arm.
Yeah.
And you can't insist upon them forgiving you as quickly as you were able to forgive them. That you have to be able to be kind and understanding in those moments to realize, like, I help play a role in this. But like, we're still in the process of healing, and she deserves this time to be able to act the way that she is feeling right now because it's a part of the process. And so I just love that, man, that when you go back to these relationships, especially those that are in recovery and won't trust back so quickly, just know, man, like that some of the damage that we did is not a scratch.
Yeah, and so how long had you been sober when the liquor bottle? You said 2 years?
2
Yeah,
years.
a year, 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. You know, we were a tornado through their lives.
Yeah.
And now we expect after a little bit of time that, you know, that's going to be gone.
One of the greatest pieces of counsel I got in early recovery was Sam, still around, still a part of groups that y'all would be aware of. He said to me, well, I drank for 8 years, so I figured I'd give her 8 years to forgive me. So I'm sitting here thinking, man, for 8 years of Jill's life, I was drinking and using, and drinking or using. And so I'm going to have to give her that amount of time to get over the damage that I did. And so I don't remember thinking of that in that moment, but I guarantee you it was up there rattling around because it was like, she's got to have the time. Yeah. It's a huge liability to folks coming out of treatment is they are so aware of how much newness there is in their world. They expect everybody else to be aware of it too. Yeah. And it's like, give me credit for what I've done. It's like, you hadn't done anything. Like, you hadn't done anything yet. Like, talk to them in a year, 2 years when you've got some track.
I just graduated.
It's like, great.
Well, you ain't been home.
You've been locked up for 4 months in a place where you can't do anything. So.
Wait, you paid your own phone bill? We're going to celebrate.
Bro, I'm not going to tell you what my daddy told me. I remember calling him. God bless him. My father, as well as Alan's, has passed on, but I remember telling him, Dad, you'll never believe it. I paid my phone bill today. He said, well, that's very good, but I've been doing it for 40 years. That's what you're supposed to do.
That's where I got that from.
And I thought to myself,
years ago.
Well, screw you, you know? But he was right, man. Like, we are doing things that most people have been doing their whole lives, you know? And we're excited about paying a phone bill. But it's what you're supposed to do, you know?
But, I mean, I think about, you know, Dad died 18 months ago. And I was able to be present and helpful during that time. I was able to sit by his side while he's unconscious. And the morphine and the Ativan are all on his side table.
No thought.
And it's like, no, there were thoughts. For me, there were. But I didn't have to give in to them.
It didn't have you. You had it.
That's right. And so there is this thought. And I'm not saying, like, I think a lot of people in recovery would have not had that struggle. But for me, the pain... I still don't like pain, emotional pain. I'd way rather
none of us do,
hurt physically. And so I'm trying to navigate that, and I don't know how to deal with it. And it's like, that'll fix it. And it's like, that's not who I am. And there was one time where I left, went to a meeting, and I just talked about it. I was like, I'm sitting there with my unconscious father, and nobody else is in the house, and I know the morphine on his side table will fix it in a moment, and I also know it'll kill me. And I don't know what to do with that thought. But to be able to be helpful and to do that clean, I mean, I preached my dad's funeral clean. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it honored what he had done for me in years where I had just, you know, thrown the middle finger up to he and everybody else around him. So that was a very hard thing to navigate, but it was such a gift to be able to see God's hand at work in allowing me to be what I was supposed to be as a son and a helper to my mom and a parent to my boys as they navigated something hard. So,
recovery affords us those opportunities.
Yes, and I think also, you know, having the thought is different than
obsession.
For sure, or having the desire. You know, so it's like I heard, you know, a long time ago, if you know, firemen when they retire, they think about fighting fires. You know, policemen when they retire, they think about, you know, police work. And so when we retire from that lifestyle and it's put there before us, it's okay to still have those thoughts. It's what you do with them, which is, you know, and how long did you have clean at this time?
Almost 12 years.
So 18 months ago, so 10
years.
plus years. So 11 years, and here he is having these thoughts and being willing to go to a meeting and talk.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And that's what recovery looks like. It's not that everything is always, oh, I didn't even have a thought and I'm on the clouds. It's when things don't go right, I have a set of tools that I'm willing to use that will help me get through it.
Which is permission for the listener to know that you can struggle differently than me.
Yes.
Exactly.
I might not have the thought. That
Right.
doesn't mean you having it makes me and you any different.
Yeah, right.
It just means that it is what, because I remember the enemy convinced me in early sobriety that I shouldn't be making this mistake. So therefore I just didn't tell nobody.
Yeah.
And I remember how that became the catalyst to a year or two of bondage. And so, like, I don't care if you 2 years sober, 12 years sober, 36 years sober. If you're struggling with it, go back to the basics.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah, and I think talking about it and being willing to talk. You started out in the beginning saying, you didn't know how to talk about problems. And sometimes that's all it is just being willing to open up and share how you're feeling. That'll give you that release.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, to bring it full circle, you and I talked about how we can skip some steps relationally because our experiences are so similar. And so, like, I could sit down and talk with you about all kinds of things, even though we've only met a couple times.
Yeah.
I walked into a meeting where I didn't know a soul. 6 hours away from my home. My sponsor's not in there. There's nobody that. And I just was like, hey, I'm from meetings down in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Here's my drugs of choice. My dad's dying. It sucks. And I probably shouldn't say that on this. You edit that out for me, John? You don't have to. That can be all right. This is miserable, but it did. I mean, that was the kind of pain I was feeling. And a group of people who I'd never laid eyes on said, hey, I've been there. I remember when my dad died.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine losing my dad. The hardest thing I've had to deal with. I'm scared of when that happens. All of the experience, strength, and hope from this group of people in a room very similar to what Laid Back was. And they just gave it to me.
It's amazing, dude. It really is amazing.
Yeah.
How you can find that, how we have that outlet. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anywhere you go, bro, you look up, there's meetings, and these people understand.
Yep.
And you don't even know their kid's name or their last name, but they understand your suffering. That's how powerful the bond of suffering is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. I want to say this too, is I don't really know how to say it, but I just know that your first attempt at ministry with New Spring and your second attempt were two totally different. First time you needed it, the second time you didn't. It's almost like I need this because this is going to keep me away from this, to this ain't even in my this ain't even in my lens. I'm just now finding a way to get in the vein of loving God, God loving me, and that this thing just came as a result of your authenticity and where you were in your life. And I think that says a lot about why you are where you are today, the responsibility God has bestowed on you. And I think it's pretty beautiful, because ain't it cool to be able to do work and not live a double life?
Yes. Yeah.
Let's be honest, bro. Like, isn't it beautiful to go to work, love what you do? Not saying that it ain't challenging, because there's a lot of things that come with what I do that suck and that I didn't sign up for, that I knew. I guess I signed up for it. I just didn't know. But the fact is the one thing I don't necessarily have to struggle with is that I'm at work, I'm high, and I'm not the same person. Like, bro, you getting who I am now and when I'm at home. And even though we still all have a lot of reconstruction to go because we're still barely scratching the surface, there's something good about knowing I'm in this vein, and like, you pretty much know that my life's an open book.
Yeah.
Like, that's free.
Yeah.
It's freedom.
That's so free, bro.
I mean, that's one of the most exhausting things I've ever had to do, was try to keep those things separated.
Yeah.
And to be able to be real and genuine, and to mess up and own it, and to live that way, it is a gift. And the other thing about, and I think this is important for people in early recovery, I remember going places and wanting to share my story. In early recovery, you have to be content to grow in the dark for a while.
No doubt. Say
And
that again for the
and
people
so-
in the back.
So,
You know what I'm saying? I've
So,
heard
like,
people say they don't really know what it means, but somebody needed to hear that, because
but almost everybody, I mean, I know I think I've heard you say that you wanted it. We've got friends that I mean, I got a guy who's leading a huge thing now, and I had to look at him one time and say, you want the platform so badly that I can't give it to you.
yeah,
Like,
that's the truth.
So
that
true.
that is the thing that's keeping you from having it, is your want for it. And when I got hired back in, my first my first time at the church, I was on the lead team. I mean, I was one of the 6 guys leading the largest growing church in the Southeast and maybe at one point America. And I thought I was something because of it. And when I got hired back in, I got hired at the bottom level of the org, like a position that we don't have anymore is where I got hired in. And that was a gift because it allowed me just to develop over time. And, when we started New Spring Recovery, prior to you being involved, I had this idea that it was going to be this big thing really quickly. And it was me and one other dude sitting across from each other, and he's a mess and crying. And it grew the way that allowed me to go, I don't have control over this, God, you're going to have to do something. And now, 6.5 years later, we've got 300 people coming once a month, and we've got healthy rehab centers in town that we have as partners. But the Lord worked those things out. It wasn't because I made it go.
Absolutely.
And so I've just found that over and over, just the surrender, whether it was laying in a hospital bed or with my work or ministry or with my family, like the surrender to win really is one of those little mantras we throw out that's true. And it's been true in my life, and so
it's freeing.
Yeah,
that's the word. It seems.
Yep.
Well, man, as much as we love to hear you, it's time to put that. Yes, sir. It's time to put that money where that shot is.
Yeah.
So you have 3 opportunities, Alan.
Okay.
To make a basket. Either way. We have a hallway right outside the podcast where we have shirts. You've seen it when you came in.
Okay.
Just grab you something on the way out.
Okay.
A shirt, hoodie, joggers, hat. It don't matter. Get you something.
He doesn't sound too confident, bro.
Well, I'm not. I was never a shooter. What I'm thinking, though, is how much fun my boys are going to make of me because my 2 oldest are ballers.
Our ballers.
They can play.
Well, you're going to make this.
Watch this and
First
make
shot,
much fun of me. So,
yes.
Right, so let me get situated here.
So let's make this shot. Now, you get a few chances. I'm holding this arm because it's going to fall if I don't.
No dunking.
All right.
Oh, almost.
That was closer than I thought. Do we think
Bro, that was pretty good,
think
actually.
Backboard?
Backboard's not a bad idea.
Is it not?
Oh.
That's
All right,
not a
now
bad
next one in
shot.
the
Just
middle.
swish that thing.
Nope.
Come
I
on.
missed him.
You got to make it. It got
I'm
a
not
little
gonna
more
make it.
art.
First shot right here.
A little more. That was perfect. Just a little
that
more
just stop?
power.
Take it.
Come on. Give him a shot. Come on.
He's gonna make it.
Eddie, you see this?
How long did it take the other people to make it?
Oh, that was it,
I'm
bro.
telling you,
It's
these
like
guys
the
three
fair.
did
It's the
good
fair.
job.
It's like the fair. It's like we bent the rim. Bro, that's so close. We're gonna be here all day. Oh! We will edit out the other 16.
All right, listen. I need y'all to edit that, John. You got the power.
Yeah.
Number 1, and then write Eddie's name under it.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Alan, thank you for giving us some time.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
To tour your story, and man, I'm just so excited for the listeners to hear this and just hear, God is still in the business of saving drug addicts.
Yeah.
It's running, bro.
All right,
We're good to go.
Well, listen. I said it at the beginning of the first one. I want to say at the end. The work that I'm getting to see y'all do in Anderson and getting to watch you do from a distance. People are alive today who would not be if y'all weren't doing that work. And man, ministry work is one of those things where it's like sometimes it's hard to measure it. But the work that y'all are doing is like life or death.
Yeah, man.
Y'all are the EMS, the police, y'all are saving people's lives. And so I'm super grateful and honored to be a part of what y'all are doing.
Yeah, man. And we say all the time, like, we could never afford these guys the quality of life without people like y'all who we get to lock arms with, because there's only so much that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
But when I realized I'm as good as who I'm tied to, and I realized it ain't about me, but it's about the connections in our community that could bring help to it and them, we really took a step further. And so in retrospect, you, New Spring Church, and many others have come alongside us, believed to partner with us, and helped us to give these men the life that they're living. And so it's been I'm be honest with you. I'm just thankful, Lord, that I'm a small part of it, because I remember my view in life, and it wasn't as good as this one. You know, so I'm grateful to be on this couch with you guys. Grateful for my recovery.
Amen.
Same.
Yes. Until next time. Shoo!
Yeah.
Thank y'all.